Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Shad, and yes, we are back with a very new video for y'all today. Today, as you saw by the title, today I want to talk about the new Denver Nuggets rotation and specifically the Denver Nuggets bench because it did get a pretty decent overhaul, and I want to talk about that newness and how effective they can be and how well they can play off their starters and how well they can play off of each other in the second unit, all those different things. So I want to specifically talk about this Denver Nuggets bench, the new look bench that they got. And I want to talk about their effectiveness. There are a couple of different questions that I want to answer as we go through this list of players that are making up the second unit for Denver. Specifically, I want to talk about or ponder about their PT projections. Do I like their fit? Do I like their addition on the roster? How well do I think they can play in a staggered lineup with the starters? How well I think they can play alongside each other in a potential 4 or 5 man substitution situation. I want to talk about all those things, and we are going to start off with our brand new backup point guard, Russell Westbrook. Russ is going to play a lot, and he reminds me a lot of what Bruce Brown brought to the table, minus the shooting, of course. A sturdy, strong-nosed, hustling backup point guard, combo guard, who can rebound the ball, who can push tempo, who can make a good pass, and who can attack the rim. All of these things that Bruce Brown brought to this team that helped them win a championship. Obviously, like I just said, we're losing the shooting that Russell Westbrook brought. There were times where Bruce Brown was in a drought and he just wasn't as strong of a shooter, obviously, but he's a very much better shooter than Russell Westbrook was. But in terms of Russ's fit on this roster and on the bench specifically, it opens up one of these things I was thinking about was that it opens up the possibility of him playing alongside Jamal Murray if absolutely necessary. You know, Russell Westbrook had a pretty solid season last year when it came to the defensive side of the ball as someone who took a lot less responsibility offensively and was able to put his energy into other parts of his game, one of those being the defensive side. Him being aggressive, him being a hustler, him getting after the ball defensively is something that the team is going to need, especially at that backup point guard position, because that is not something that we've really had in terms of a point guard who is a physical, strong, multi-position defender. When it comes to his ideal role on this team, obviously a strong-nosed, defensive-minded first player is something that I would like to see from Russ. But his role is also as a reliever for Jamal Murray, someone who has established playmaking tendencies and experience and MVP experience and MVP ceiling that he used to achieve or he used to be at. He provides that energy, he provides the playmaking, he provides the game managing, floor generaling experience that the backup unit is going to need. Ideally, if Russell Westbrook buys into this role, there will be an established point guard. There will be a point guard who, alongside new P&R partners and in a new system that promotes movement, that promotes motion, that promotes cutting, that promotes P&R actions, like I just said. It would be fantastic for him to kind of get this fresh start. And it's been talked about a little bit, but obviously leaving Los Angeles and coming to Denver, just from a media standpoint, just from a outside expectation standpoint, I think it'd be really good for him. I think it's going to be really good for him to come to Denver and have all of that pressure kind of shed off of him just a little bit. He's going to have his followers. He's going to have the people that still critique his game. Obviously, he's a former MVP and all these sorts of things. He had stops in LA. Like, it's not going to stop completely, but it's going to lessen a lot. And I really like that for him because I think it's going to translate really well into the on-court production that we get from Russell Westbrook, right? Another one of these things that I wanted to look at when it comes to Russ's ideal role on this team is as an inverted P&R partner. And this is something that, again, has been talked about in the Nuggets Twitter space world and the Nuggets social media world. But the guy last season for the Clippers was setting some solid screens. He was being a really good short roll man. And when you think about what Russell Westbrook was at his prime, a really good playmaker, a really good passer, someone who could push the tempo, make a good read, and someone who could make the right decisions most of the time when it came to half-court passing. Having Russell Westbrook, for example, be the pick and roller for Dario Saric, for a Nikola Jokic, adds just another element to what the bench unit's scoring can look like, because that is a very big question that a lot of people have when it comes to the second unit is, how are they going to score? Who is going to be the facilitator? Who's going to be the shot maker, right? How often are the Nuggets going to have to stagger? Who are they going to have to stagger? All of these different questions because of how weak offensively the second unit is, it poses some questions. And I think if Russ is utilized a lot as a roller, it opens up the floor for so many people, especially considering the type of rim pressure that he gives. His rim percentage could be better. Some of the finishing and stuff, yes, obviously could be better, and it's gotten worse as the years have gone on and stuff like that. Obviously, we're not expecting to get MVP Russ. But when it comes to his skill set in that specific category as a roller, someone who can go up and above some of the second unit defenders, someone who can make that kick out pass to the corner, whoever it may be. That's the type of vision that I have for Russell Westbrook. That's the type of vision I have for him as a multi-use Bruce Brown type of backup point guard that the Nuggets can use to their fullest capability. Because 1, 2, and 3, I would say, probably a little bit of small forward minutes, if absolutely necessary, can be filled with Russell Westbrook. I mainly want to see him running the backup unit without Jamal on the floor. I don't want to see them playing together, but I know Malone has a tendency to like the guard and guard, or the 2-point guard backcourts when he's staggering. So at least now we have a Russell Westbrook that can. Some of the lineups I was thinking about, honestly, Russ, Julian, MPJ, P-Watt, Dario. Or we can go Russ, Julian, CB, MPJ, Jokic. We can go Jamal, Russ if Malone's feeling it. With the starters, like, I think there are a couple more mix and match options that are available to the Nuggets now that Russell Westbrook is on the team, now that a couple other people that I'm talking about are healthy and in the rotation. There are a couple different roster or rotation schemes that are now at the disposal of the Nuggets. And speaking of one of those pieces that adds to the schemes, let's talk about Julian Strawther. He had an incredible summer league showing. Didn't make any of the summer league teams. It's whatever, probably because of games played type of thing. But the man was hooping. He was dropping buckets. He was getting to the rim. He was leading the offense. He had the ball in his hands. He was making shots. He was hitting tough shots. He was getting to the line. All of the things that the Nuggets coaching staff, the Nuggets fans, the Nuggets faithful, all the things that we were expecting or hoping to see out of Julian Strawther this summer league in preparation for the season, we all got to see. And I think everyone was really happy with the results that they got from Julian. I have high hopes for him. I will say they are high hopes while still acknowledging that he is a sophomore and while making sure it doesn't exceed the expectations of a sophomore who didn't play nearly as much as I thought he would in his rookie year. That being said, I see a very similar path to Peyton Watson for Julian Strawther. The sophomore year last season for Peyton Watson was incredible. And even though he didn't really get the chance to play in the playoffs and really show off that impact in the postseason, throughout the entire regular season, we saw the specialness, the uniqueness of a Peyton Watson, a 6'7" lockdown shot blocking wing. And he really thrived in that strength. He was put in positions to where that strength was utilized fully and on showcase and on display. I see that type of thing happening for Julian Strawther this year. I see him emerging onto the scene during the regular season as someone who shoots outstandingly well from three-point land relative to what his age or what his experience should be. I think he's going to end up a 40% three-point shooter. I mean, we saw Peyton Watson averaging however many blocks and however many low minutes that he got every game. You adjust those to per 36, the numbers get crazy. That's what I see for Julian Strawther. I don't think he's going to be the highest volume, obviously, just a sophomore coming off the bench. There will be some games this year, especially with the departure of KCP, where that three-point shooting is going to be very necessary. And if Julian Strawther stays consistent throughout the year, if he shows some effort on the defensive side of the ball and stays on the floor, that shooting is going to be very, very valuable. Like I said, with the loss of KCP, a near 40% three-point shooter, you're going to need to fill that gap somewhere. And the Nuggets right now do not have a large bag of three-point shooters at their disposal. They just don't. Julian Strawther is one of them. And if this team wants to have higher hopes, or if they want to have more championship aspirations, they need to shoot the three ball. Julian's going to be able to help with that. Let's talk about Peyton Watson. One of my favorite young guys in the league, not just because he's on the Nuggets, but because of his very unique skill set. Like I said, a shot blocking primary defender who obviously can lock up on the perimeter if necessary, and whose offensive game is still growing, but there's signs of that growth. You've seen the growth, you've seen the projection, you see where he can get offensively, We already know what he can do defensively, but offensively, that's going to be the big question for him, right? We just talked about the lack of offensive firepower coming with this backup unit. If they want to win games, if they don't want to blow games for the Nuggets specifically, Peyton Watson is one of those players that's going to have a little bit more offensive responsibility. I expect him to grow a little bit as a three-point shooter. I expect him to become a little bit more consistent in that area, especially the corner three ball, because I think it's going to be open a lot. When we're talking about Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric as passers, I think the three ball is going to be opened up so much with his backup unit, especially when we get into staggers with the starters and slightly better shooters. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Peyton Watson to be a much more improved three-point shooter because the opportunities I think are going to be there. That being said, I do expect him to step a little bit more into his backup AG type of role. You know, we saw it a lot during the latter half of last season, I would say, where he's playing a lot in the dunker spot. He's playing around the middle of the court, similar to what AG does. He's rolling, he's cutting on the baseline, he's playing at the rim because his three-point shot obviously isn't as strong, but he's still providing an impact in that role where an AG isn't on the floor. I want to see Peyton Watson continue to play against, or not play against, but play alongside CB. I think these two have a really special defensive chemistry and just chemistry overall as these two young guys, these two young defenders on this team. They have a special connection. And when they were on the court together last season, minus the shooting, they were a pretty damn good duo to have on the floor together because you knew you were going to get some stops. And even though they were so young, defensively, having that trust in those two players in that regard means so much. And I think obviously both of their defensive talents are going to keep on growing, but even if CB is in the starting lineup, I would like to see staggers where those two do end up playing together a lot of minutes because I think only good things are going to result from it. Next up, we got Vlatko and Zeke. Vlatko's coming off an injury, a season-long injury. Zeke is not that good. What this four position was going to be was Deron Holmes. I would have a lot to say about that, but I don't have a lot to say about these two. And then last up on the bench, Dario Saric. He brings three-point shooting at the backup big spot that the Nuggets have been craving. And I believe last season he was at 38% from three. And I will take that as someone who, obviously has paid attention to what Dario Saric has been and what his skill set is as a good passer, a good post player, and as a good shooter. I like his fit with the backup unit because I think it allows a more seamless transition from the starting unit to the backup unit, right? There's a big talent drop off. That doesn't really have to be stated. Obviously there is, but when it comes to being able to run that system, right? The motion heavy system, the system that prioritizes a lot of plays being ran by the center and being focused around the center in the middle of the court area, the low post area, the free throw line extended, all of these different areas that Jokic likes to work in and that is so effective. I think there's a better chance of that style of play being translated over to the bench now that Dario Saric is on the team. He can make good reads, he made good passes, and if you were watching him in the Warriors system, they used him a lot. Chris Paul used him a lot. Jonathan Kuminga used him a lot. Dario Saric was a connector. And not just a connector too, like obviously he played connector, he played the middle ground, he played the, let me get it from you to him, whatever. But he was an initiator at times too. Sometimes in the post, spinning off, drawing pressure, kicking it out, or attacking the short roll, making a quick pass out to the corner, or making, again, on the short roll, hitting the lob to a guy that's cutting down lower. All of these things that we've watched from Dario Saric over the last few years, and last year specifically, all of these things are really good for me. We are not getting defense. I am okay with not getting defense because it's something that I very much understand is not going to happen. But having someone who can run our system, it reminds me a lot of Boogie Cousins, honestly. And why Boogie works so well as the backup center with this unit was that he had all of these same characteristics. A really underrated passer. He could shoot the ball sometimes. He was a good rebounder at that point of his career. Like, obviously, Dario's not as strong of a rebounder. He's not a great defender by any means. But there's a lot of shine for Dario in this backup unit. There's a lot of chance for him to really showcase every single skill that he has, because I think the system is going to allow him to do that. I'm obviously more intrigued with Saric as a passer. You guys know me. I love playmaking. I love passing. I love good reads and all that stuff. Imagine Saric is running some staggered minutes with the starters. Imagine Aaron Gordon catching some passes from Dario Saric on the short roll and or just out of the post. There are options here for running the Nuggets system effectively and to its truest form with Dario Saric on the floor and not Jokic. And I think that's a really good sign for what this signing was. I'd like to see some stagger lineups, obviously with Saric playing alongside some of the starters when Jokic is tired. Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, MPJ, AG, Dario Saric. You will have to monitor the Russ and AG minutes because it can get a little dicey, obviously with the lack of shooting and but that is a lineup that is a potential. As long as they have 3 shooters around them, I think they'll be all right. Jamal, CB, P-Watt, Vlaco, Saric. Another basic lineup that utilizes length, still has some shooters on the floor. His passing ability, his ability to space the floor is what's going to allow him to keep on playing and get some pretty considerable playing time during the regular season and still be able to be productive, even if it comes at the cost of some defense, obviously, but we're looking at the bright sides here. Honestly, for how capped the Nuggets were when it came to being able to make offseason moves, I do like how it turned out. Could it have been better? Could there have been other options that we could have gotten that would have been better fits for what we needed? Absolutely there were. Absolutely there could be. But those players had different intentions. Those players had different wants and different needs that the Nuggets could not. I like what this has turned into, right? The bench definitely has flaws. It's going to have flaws. Everybody in the world is going to complain about their second unit because there's always going to be concerns when the starters leave the floor. It just is what it is. That's basketball. And yeah, those flaws may be detrimental at some point during the season. And yeah, they're probably going to lose us some games. They're going to blow a lead. It's going to happen and it's okay. Malone will probably have to get a little bit more crafty when it comes to the staggering. And I can't remember who I heard it from. I don't know if it was Malone specifically or someone else on the coaching staff, but the idea of getting MPJ to stagger with the bench unit a lot more this season is really enticing if they're going to need that 3-point shooting. I just think Malone now has a couple of different tools, more tools than he had last season, I would say, to get craftier, to get more creative with the rotations that he runs. And for these situational rotations and lineups that he's going to run too, I think there are a lot of different variety of tools that he can use now. Like I said, though, I have my concerns. Who doesn't? I'm not the only one in Nuggets Nation who's still a little bit worried about this bench, but I do think that it is better than what it was last season. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you so much for watching this video.